Hey there. Have you ever wondered if you should get an astrology reading, if that would be right for you, or what an astrology reading even is? Or maybe you've had an astrology reading before and perhaps you still have some questions about like how to get the most out of an astrology reading if you were to book another one, if the one you had perhaps left you wanting more. I just wanted to put out this little bonus video. So I'm Rosemary Holbrook, host of the Yogi Scopes podcast, where I teach you about how to use your yoga practice to harness the astrological weather. And so a significant portion of that involves teaching astrology, and along with that comes astrology readings, which I do, but I have a very different approach to astrology readings than probably most astrologers, and I'm going to explain that today and explain how I approach astrology readings, how all of the readings I've ever had have been, or what I've heard about other people's experiences with readings, and how my approach is different in the paradigm shift that I hope to see. This is just a bonus episode, so you can look out for the December outlook. I always put out an outlook. It will be coming out later this week, but I just had to put this out there. So I'm an astrologer, a Vedic astrologer. I use sidereal astrology, but I don't give people advice. I get the feeling like people go to an astrologer expecting to be advised on something, and an astrology reading, and the way I approach it too, hopefully still can point you to answers, but I'm just going to explain the mindset shift about how I approach it. But I want to start out by pointing out a couple things. There's this meme floating around the internet that says something to the effect of unsolicited advice is always criticism. And I so agree with that. I don't just tell people how to live their life. Like in my personal life or in astrology readings, I never say, you know what I think you should do. And I think a lot of astrologers don't. Like that's not what goes into an astrology reading. You know, I haven't had so many, but I've had astrology readings from other astrologers before. And I've also had feedback from my astrology teacher on my readings. So I do have some insight into like what they're quote unquote supposed to be like, but I'm an Aquarius, so I do things like however I want, against the beaten path. But I also had a person that had a reading with me, and this person apologized to me for talking about herself because I asked a question in this reading, a clarifying question, which I'm going to get to. This process that I apply in readings that I think is really helpful for folks to arrive at their own answers rather than me giving you the answers or laying advice on you. Because I think this whole paradigm that me as the astrologer or any astrologer is the one bestowing some knowledge on you or pointing out things to you about yourself that you couldn't have figured out on your own is messed up, and I don't like it. So just an example, this person had a reading with me, apologized profusely multiple times for talking about herself because I asked questions. Because the way I approach it is I'm going to ask you questions to help you arrive to the answers within. I'll describe the process in a moment in case maybe you're an astrologer or a coach or a healer in some format, or you just want to apply this to like the people in your life, because you can do it. It's helpful with loved ones too. Like if you saw that meme, giving unsolicited advice is always criticism, and you want to stop giving unsolicited advice, you can use this framework to do that. They tell you don't give unsolicited advice. They don't tell you what to do instead. And I'm going to tell you what I do instead of giving people advice. And then I also had a reading where I got an astrology reading and I came with a specific question, which I think most people do. Most people, the impetus to finally book the reading is like you're going through some big change or thinking about making some big change, and you kind of want like validation, or like, is this a good idea? You want somebody to like help you through that decision, and that's helpful. It is helpful to have another human being help us navigate big, complicated, tricky choices, and that part is helpful. But I came to this reading with a specific question, and I feel like this astrologer was like pointing out things about my chart and telling me what she thought I should do with those parts of my chart. And I was like, okay, I know enough about astrology to know that I'm already kind of working with those karmas and living through that energy in a different way than she thought I should be. And I think I was fine in those areas and I really wanted to know about this specific area. And this astrologer was also like a trained counselor, so I was just like a little bit irritated and annoyed that I came with a specific question and it felt like she was also trying to bestow her astrology knowledge on me. And I just feel like this person probably didn't even realize that is such a Western medicine paradigm of like the healer, the astrologer, the doctor, the psychologist, whatever. They're just on this pedestal and they're going to bestow their knowledge on you and tell you what you should do. And it's very subtle. It's a very subtle thing happening there. And so when I do readings, I'm more of asking questions to help you arrive, because I might be an expert in astrology. You might know dang near as much about astrology as I do. I don't know. I have people that come to my yoga classes that have been practicing yoga longer than I have. They just didn't make it their career, right? So what I'm not going to do in a reading, me personally, I'm not going to flex my psychic muscles on you. I also had this experience. These are all reasons I felt like I needed to make this little bonus episode, because I was telling another mutual yoga friend about what I do with astrology, and she was talking about how she got an aura reading and how this aura reading was like, she was just telling her things about herself that she never realized. And I'm like, okay, cool, I guess, but I'm not the kind of person. This is just my approach to astrology. And if this is not your jam, go find one of the jillion other astrologers that they approach it what I'm calling the traditional way, where they're going to flex their psychic muscles on you and they're going to be up on their little healer pedestal and they're going to bestow their knowledge on you. But I have had enough experience with the whole Western medicine paradigm, and I personally am wanting to push away from that, where it's not about me flexing my psychic muscles or telling you things about your chart, telling you things about your life that I couldn't have possibly known to just prove to you that astrology works or something. That's not fun for me. I get that that's fun for some people. They're like, wow, how could this person have known that? And I'm like, I'm not in the business of convincing you to believe in astrology. If you believe in astrology, fine. If you don't, I actually have had somebody come to a reading that didn't believe in astrology and was kind of hoping that I would flex my psychic muscles, and I didn't really. I'm like, that's just not how I approach it. So that's why I feel like I needed to make this little video bonus podcast episode to explain how I do approach it, so that if you do ever want to get a reading from me, you can know what's going to happen. I'm not going to flex my psychic muscles on you. I'm going to ask you questions to help you get clarity. I will hope that you come to the reading prepared with like what you want clarity about. So that's what I usually get people that come to readings, and they're either like, I'm about to go through this big change and I need help with it, or they're like, I just want to know myself better. And I'm like, okay, cool. If you want to know yourself better, it's not on me to tell you about yourself. It's on me to help you unlock that self-awareness within. That is the skill that I'm hoping to convey through everything that I do. And so with that mindset shift, I just want to also point out the couple reasons I think people get readings are that they're not necessarily looking for answers. I think most people get readings because they have some thing within them that they're looking for validation for. Or maybe the folks that come to readings and they're like, I just want you to tell me about my chart. I don't have any specific questions. I just want to know what's in my chart. And why do we want to know that? Why do we want to know what's in our birth chart? It feels validating for our experiences that we've already had, that we already know about. And it doesn't matter if this astrologer knows about them or not. To me, to some people, they're like, wow, that feels really validating when this person can tell me about pieces of my life that I didn't bring up, and there's no way that this person would have known. And that's like cute and fun, I guess, but that's not, to me, it's not the purpose of a reading. Like, you start diving into your birth chart on your own and be like, wow, this really reflects my life experiences. And that's the point. That is the point, is to get more in touch with not only what experiences you've had, but what kind of reactions you've had around those experiences and how those have shaped your behavior and your path in life, which is ultimately, that's your life path, right? That's your dharma. And that's what your birth chart lays out, your karmas and what path you might pursue. So what do I do instead in a reading? Instead of giving unsolicited advice, saying, you know what I really think you should do, which I don't think many astrologers do that. I'm not saying that that's what they do, but a lot of them do flex their psychic muscles on you, or have this paradigm where like they're the one that knows about astrology and they're going to bestow their astrology knowledge on you and their interpretation is the right one. And so I got that feedback when I was in training to become a certified Vedic astrologer, that I should tell less about the particulars of what's happening, of why I'm making the interpretations that I'm making. But I just don't approach it that way. And I think genuinely I've had a lot of training in a technique that's called motivational interviewing. So I'm not a licensed psychologist or therapist or anything. And that's not even the point. Like, that's not, the point isn't for me to help you process through things. It's for me to point you in the direction of things you might need to process through on your own. And if you can't process through those things on your own, you might go see a professional like a therapist that could help you process through those things. That's not, when astrology reading is not to like process through your life stuff, right? It is to get more clarity and direction that comes from within, because I might be the expert in astrology, but I might not. I have had people come to readings with me with as much or more experience in astrology as me. And so that's not the point of the reading. It's not for me to bestow my knowledge of astrology on you. A reading is not for you to learn astrology. It's for me to reflect back to you some experience you're having or have had, so that you can sort through it on your own. Because sometimes we get caught up in our own mental biases and thought loops. And so to have somebody else reflect back to you what you're going through can be really helpful in finding clarity. And we are biologically wired for connection. Like, it is safe for us to blend in with the herd, to not stand out. Like, it is, we want to fit in. Like, people have always wanted to conform to a group, right? So I think it can be hard sometimes when you start looking into your birth chart. This is exactly what I was looking in my birth chart, and I was like, I want to do this thing. It seems crazy. Nobody's ever done it before. And so I was like, I think my chart supports it, but I was just looking for a little extra guidance, right? And so this is the thing, like, people will pack bond with anything. Like, people name their robot vacuums because we want to connect. Like, it's just this thing that we want to connect with people. So I think readings are a good chance for connection with another person and for helping sort through things in a very specific container that's a little bit more like, you could go to your friends and talk about this stuff. This is actually why I created the Yogi Scopes membership to be the way it is so that you can get more feedback from more than just me, from people who have some understanding of astrology and can kind of listen and hear you out in a way that, you know, maybe your friends can't. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm going through this hard thing. I'm going through sati sati. And you can talk to a group of people or me or an astrologer who understands when you say that, they understand what that means, right? But so basically, the first thing I'm going to do is reflect and validate anything that it seems like you might currently be experiencing, whether that's through planetary transits or just things that you've said out loud. And so then things that you say out loud, we might find something in your chart that validates that as well. But then I'm going to ask you clarifying questions. And that's where this person that came to my reading, I asked a clarifying question. And this person like apologized profusely for going off on a tangent. And I was like, no. This is where I started to realize everybody has the wrong impression about readings. People are like, I come here for you to tell me the answers, for you to tell me about me. And that's just not how I approach it at all. My job is to unlock within you the clarity that you're looking for. And sometimes that takes another person. I guess that's my point, is like, if you're having a hard time finding that clarity within yourself and you need somebody to bounce ideas off of, that's when you would go to a reading. But I do not approach readings as me bestowing my astrology knowledge on you, or me bestowing some profound epiphany on you that you couldn't have found yourself. So, you know, why am I saying all that? I'm really doing a good job of selling readings, aren't I? Like, well, and so that's my thing. That's why I'm like, I'm actually switching away from, I have raised my prices for readings for the public, which they're still pretty cheap for readings, but they're cheaper for folks in the membership. And as the day of this video releasing, the membership closes tonight at midnight Eastern time. If you miss it, get on the wait list for next time. But I just want that ongoing relationships with folks. I got tired of having readings with people and then like never hearing from them again. I was like, I want to know how this is playing out. I want to have a more accessible container because I myself am not spending, upwards of $200. Some folks charge upwards of $300 for a reading. They're very expensive because they are highly specialized in most cases. But I just want to make that distinction where I'm going to ask clarifying questions. I'm going to point out patterns that I notice that you may not. And this could be coming from your birth chart or coming from what you described to me, which is why you don't need to apologize to me for talking about yourself. And I'm going to help explore perspectives that you may not have thought of or that you may have been scared to pursue based on that whole not wanting to stand out from the herd thing. And so I can also help identify your strengths and weaknesses and what helps, like what lights you up, no matter whether it's easy or hard. So it's not always about doing the easy thing, right? Or what comes naturally to you. Sometimes it's about doing what's hard. And then I can help you come up with creative solutions if you ask me to. But what I'm not going to do is tell you that I think you need to do this or I think you need to do that. So thanks for listening. I just wanted to make that distinction that also, like, if you go for an astrology reading, watch out for that, because I do find that that's a lot of the paradigm is that, like, the astrologer is there, the reader, tarot reader, astrologer, aura reader, whatever, these people, they're like, I'm here to tell you about you. And I feel like that's this unconscious, not even realizing that that's perpetuating the whole like Western paradigm of like when you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, this is what's wrong with you, this is what you're going to do about it, right? And very rarely do doctors spend the time helping you get to the root cause of what it is. And that's what I do. That's my whole training and background in like yoga therapy and being a wellness coach. But I just think it's important to know why you're getting a reading. Are you wanting somebody else to give you the answers? Then maybe go to a different astrologer. But if you want help diving within and unlocking your ability to find the answers yourself, that's what I'm here for. And so if you want a reading, you can book a reading anytime. But if you want to join the membership, I highly recommend that, because that is where I guide you to understand your chart for yourself better on a regular basis. And you have not just me to bounce questions off of and get validation from. You have the entire community. So, and the community is all kinds of different people with day jobs, people that are stay-at-home moms, people that have kids, don't have kids, working parents, whatever. Like, there's all kinds of different people in there. So it's not like a community that you have to blend into to fit in, right? Like a lot of times other communities we find, it's like, oh, I'm going to find this community of other moms because I'm a mom, or like whatever. This community is just people that love yoga and astrology, and we can all be different and just nerd out about it together, which is why that's what I envisioned. That's what I wanted. That's what I created. And it's really coming together. And I would really love if that sounds good to you. If you want to dive deeper into astrology, I just like that also sometimes feels to me like astrologers kind of gatekeep astrology. And I'm like, no, I, as a person getting an astrology reading, wanted to know why the astrologer was saying the things they were saying about me. I was like, why do you think I'm such and such? I'm like, what placement made you say that? And so that's why I do it that way. And so if that's not for you, if you want somebody that's just going to tell you the answers and not say too much jargon, then maybe I'm not the astrologer for you. But if you want somebody that's going to teach you how to do it for yourself so that and just guide you and help sort through your own biases along the way, then I'd love to welcome you into the Yogi Scopes community. So get on the wait list if it's not open, if you miss the window. But otherwise, I'd love to see you there. Take care, friends.